Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. This is a weekly program that you're welcome to be a part of. It is dedicated to living in the now, that always is. And also, it's about accepting all of life and the things that's offered to us, to accept them with gratitude and appreciation, realizing that there's some kind of a lesson there. I am Mona Duncan, and I am a instructor with the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory, and just are glad that you're here with us. So today we're going to be talking about emotional transformation. Emotions are a wonderful thing, as with most things, that there's always a positive and a negative, but emotions are great. So we're going to be looking at emotional transformation. It may not seem like it initially, it may seem like too much work, but later as we can look back and see, oh, how much nicer it is to have those emotions on reins that are, that listen. Anyway, we live in an ever-changing world. And so I just put up a few things here, just a few thoughts on whether we are seen as being old-fashioned. We're all a part of planet Earth, and whether we're seen as contemporary, depending on the age that we are. But the old-fashioned route is looking at being part of a family or a tribe, and that there's history to it. Not only history to our particular family, our skills and backgrounds and so forth, but the history that how that our tribe and our family affected others. There's a spiritual affinity, there's five senses, there's that sense of self that's within the tribe, even though there's a lot of things, just the fact that I belong and I'm a part of it. And then also looking at the simplicity, because even those that are more in the contemporary for today maybe likes to go back and look at the movies of old for the simplicity and the anyway, the contemporary, that things are, we're less connected. And often even the connecting that we have now, it is mechanical, which that is a lot to be thankful for, but still it's not quite the same as being there and seeing each other eyeball to eyeball, or being able to touch one another. As a global community of sacred venues. And sometimes it can be disconcerting as to seeing things so differently and not being willing to look at them in a different light. It's multi-sensory. Not only are all these things that we have collected with our five senses, but we've become so familiar with them and we've passed them on to generations that they mix together easier and quicker, and we see things and it becomes intuitive. And anyway, energy, it's all about energy, but that energy is not often respected as much as we want, and that life is complicated. So a little information, just to kind of keep us on track. A little information does the body good. And looking at the total behavior that is a language of choice theory and reality therapy, it helps us to see how that our brain unites all the organs and the cells in our body to help us run smoothly. They're going to be, and to know that stress contributes to our emotions, to how we feel, to our physiology, and stress contributes. Science suggests that as we worry, or that the fear that we have, that those two, worry and fear, are the greatest contributors to our physical and our mental health. And as we can, well, looking at stress and worry and fear as being a kind of like a poison, that we can stop assimilating that, or we can greatly reduce it. Emotions have purpose and a use. And they do have. Sometimes we're aware of that, sometimes we're not aware of that. But it determines the positive or the negative potential, and also the positive or the negative outcome. because energy plus motion is emotion, or it is energy in motion. And energy plus motion is connected to our creativity and our imagination. It's connected to our memory of what has happened, and it's also connected to the imagination of what will happen. And so it depends on how much motion or how much energy we put into that motion as to whether or not it is effective or ineffective. And then we have thoughts that connect, invisible thoughts that connect us with everything. It connects us with ourselves. It connects us with the things that we think about, the things we do know, the things we think we know, the things we don't know. In the legal field, it has been said that a person who represents himself in court has a crazy person for a lawyer. Well, you may think, well, why not? I am an attorney, which, you know, I'm not personally, but an attorney may think I'm an attorney, so why not represent myself? Well, what's the reasoning behind that? It's because the law of the land, the law of the universe is deep and it's complicated. Well, so too with our emotions. We may think that we can handle them. Come on, bring it on, whatever bring it on is. And maybe we can for a while, but they're deep and they're complicated. And so the foundation of anything is the part that doesn't show. Meaning that in order for there to be a high-rise building, there needs to be a low-rise basement. Meaning that for however many stories up the high-rise is going to go, there needs to be some kind of an equivalency as to how deep it's dug down, how many stories are down underneath, because it has to have that foundation to weigh it in so that the high rise or the loftiness or can be stable. And so I have on here a little reminder to myself of either dismount or be knocked off. I'm remembering a time in a work position, and there was a manual as to how things were to proceed. There was a recipe for the thing, and there was someone that was not following the recipe, and so I spoke up to say that, you know, that's against the rules of the organization. But it wasn't well received, and it was, you know, I brought it up again. And it seemed like each time it was brought up, it was received a little bit more of a pushback. But it was, my facts were documentable, literally documentable. So I was thinking, those invisible thoughts that are always connected to everything. I was thinking, and I was just looking outside and had a cup of coffee, and I was thinking and thinking, and my invisible thought said to me, well, you have a choice, and I've always been real big on choices. My invisible thought said to me, Mona, you have a choice. You can either dismount and get off of your high horse, or you can be knocked off. Because life has a way of kind of knocking our feet out from under us. And we may think it was all life's fault, but it may be a little bit of the fact that we were not choosing to dismount and we were trying to ride too high or build too quick. And so I think about laying that foundation, going back to Aristotle's golden mean. And what it was kind of looking at I like to look at it as bookends, an extreme on one end and an extreme on the other end, so that we cannot go to those extremes, but come more toward the golden middle, whether that is extreme as being brave to the point of being irrational, or to the extreme of being a coward to the point of just, again, being irrational. whether that is on one end, the bookend of being generous, and on the other bookend would be of being stingy or gluttonous, or to abstain, or to be free and to do what I want to do, and all this kind, or being controlled or trying to control someone else. That anytime those main extremes kind of bring them into the moral behavior, to the doing what is good for you, but what is also not harming other people, not harming others. And sometimes we think, well, to come middle ground, that's to walk a tightrope. Well, not necessarily. You may want to put a fence around your yard, but yet with it, we do need to have some boundaries set. But even within those boundaries, you have the freedom to walk and to run and to have lots of fun. And so that moral ground, that middle ground, that is more giving us more room. It's looking at perspective and our intention. And as we're looking at the fact that we're living in an ever-changing world, the world changes as we change. And the way we see things, or what our intentions become, change as we change. Because our perception and our intention are multidimensional. Has a lot to do with our emotions, how we feel that day emotionally as well as physically, how we are seeing things that day. And then also it's looking at light and whether or not the light is shining or the light is dimming, whether our perspective of seeing it as being A-okay or seeing it as being, oh, no, it's not the right intention. So here's a quote from C.S. Lewis. He said, I believe the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by the sun, I can see everything else. And as we begin to look at things in our perspective and our intentions, is it too myopic or is it more middle ground? When we're in middle ground, we have a bigger scope with which that we can look and see things. And we can begin to see the positive and the negative rather than just the absolute that we may be so ingrained in emotionally. So a friend of mine in a chat then sent me an article that was entitled The Illusion of Explanatory Depth. And this was an experiment that was back in 2002 that became written up. It was about, I have the two people that was responsible for this, Leonid Rosenfeld and Frank Keel. And in the article, they were looking at the fact that they were asking people, how much do you understand the workings of something? And such as your cell phone. How well do you understand the workings of the cell phone? How much do you understand the workings of a computer? Now, there are a lot of people that are really, really in depth of understanding and knowing how computers work. I am not one. And I certainly see that the ones and the zeros and the ones and the zeros and the ones and the zeros, how in the world can that go together to become such a complicated computer that is such a wonderful miracle also? Or it could be, how well do you understand the work? How is a bill passed in Congress? Or what about nature? Do you understand about gardening? Or do you, what is your understanding of nature and seasons and the effect of global warming or not effect? Or, what is your understanding of mental health? What is your understanding of relationships? What is your working understanding of? And then then they're asked, you say, yes, I understand how refrigerators work. Then the individual was asked to give step-by-step explanation. Well, that would cause a lot of striking. How do you give me a step-by-step explanation of how to have good, healthy relationships, how to get along with people, how to have a good, healthy workforce? Give me a step-by-step explanation of that. And again, well, I don't know. And we realize that we have an abundance of information that's available to us. I mean, We carry it in our hand. We keep it in our purses. We keep it in our pockets. Go on Google, look at that. But yeah, or read the paper. But do we read the paper? Or do we just scan the headlines? Just enough, there's an abundant amount of information, but we have a shallow understanding of that information. And then that in looking at this, as we really get honest with ourselves, as we choose to dismount from our high horse, rather than being knocked off of it, we begin to have a little humility. We begin to look at things with a little bit of humility, and we begin to be more cooperative. Yeah, I maybe not see your point completely, but I'm beginning to see it a little bit better. And so, as with most things, humility is a two-sided coin. Whenever you're going to play with, which one's going to kick off in the football game, and you flip a coin, and on one side, it's the eagle, and on the other side, it's something else, that has the two sides. And so one side is for a yes, and one side is for a no. But humility is a lot like that. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. Sometimes we think, well, we talk ourselves as being ugly. Humility is thinking of yourself less. It's looking at the fact that I matter, and I matter a lot, but I'm not the most important thing. And it reminds me, looking at the depth of illusion of perception, and in looking at Aristotle's mean, reminds me a whole lot of Rumi, the Sufi poet, and his poem called The Guest House. The guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes in an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep into your house, empty it of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be cleaning you out for some new delight, a dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been given, each has been sent as a guide from beyond. A guide from beyond? Where do our thoughts come from? Who knows? You see, as we see our feelings as guests in our very being, even if it's anger, even if it's envy, even if it's jealousy, even if it's disregard, as we can see it, that's what I'm thinking now, that's what I'm feeling now. And there may be some reasonings behind it, maybe there's not. And if I can be kind, and if I can show compassion, and I can understand that irritant, whoever they are, that is the cause of the irritant, they will lose the need to act out. And I will lose the need to act out. As I can be thankful that that's showing me that, boy, I have a small fuse in that area. That is showing me that I think I know more about that than I really do. Then I will be less acting out. I think of the father that shared with me how his kids, they was always wanting to go here or go there or do something else, and they didn't understand all the finances and the navigation that was required about being a part of a yes or no for that. And it was always a kind of a battle with his kids whenever they would ask him something. And one day he made the decision that he was going to give them a yes or a no right up front. And then they would work together on the particulars of how to figure things out. So you see, a foundational principle is just to accept everything. Oh, but they're coming here to rob me. And the Rumi poet says, so they're giving you room for more stuff. So accept everything, but attach to nothing. That sometimes is where we can be so emotionally burdened, when we have let things just stick onto us and they're attached to us. And they have become, well, they're just attached and we don't know how to release them. It's an opportunity does not awaken those who are asleep. We may be in the most beautiful, abundant garden, but if we're walking through it with our blindfolders on, or if we're wanting something that's not in the garden, and that's all that we're focused on, opportunity is there. It's there, it's there, it's there, but it's not going to wake us up if we keep our blinders on. And it's knowing as a foundational principle that we participate in our own healing. We participate in our own success, no matter what that is. That there's a difference in a physical wellness, as in not aching anymore and in being cured, because wholeness includes all aspects of life, mentally, emotionally, financially, relationally, and there's a whole bunch more. And to esteem is to see the value of. So we've looked at this before, but I thought just in going with the emotion and bringing back again, this is a quote from Dr. William Glasser. Dr. Glasser said, I have no ability to change how I feel when I'm separated, when all I'm doing is focusing on those feelings and I'm not looking at what I'm doing or what I'm thinking. But I have almost complete ability to change what I do and some ability to change what I think, regardless of how I am choosing to think or feel. So I have no ability to change how I feel, because those are on the back wheels. And I am so busy looking at what I'm thinking or what I'm doing. But I have almost complete ability to change what I do and some ability to change what I'm thinking, regardless of how I'm choosing to feel. So as we can calm those emotions. Today is Martin Luther King Day. And from our newspaper, Waco newspaper, just a couple of 3 facts of Martin Luther King. It was made a federal holiday by President Ronald Reagan. Martin Luther King saw Mahatma Gandhi as his inspirational nonviolent leader, that he used him as his mentor. And in 1964, he received the Nobel Peace Prize. And here's a quote from his Christmas sermon on peace back in 2010. Now, let me suggest first that if we are to have peace on earth, our loyalties must be ecumenical rather than sectional. We must develop a world perspective. No individual can live alone. No nation can live alone. And as long as we try, the more we are going to have war in this world. It really boils down to this, that all of life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are made to live together because of the interrelated structure of reality. And reality is sometimes something hard to figure out and try to come to terms with. But as we can look at those feelings and rein them in to be effective, to help us either had that light that someone says there's, and I do not know who quoted this originally, but that there are two ways of seeing light. And one is by being the candle, and the other is by seeing the reflection in the mirror. So thanks for being here, and many blessings.